Welcome to Art for Advent. This series focuses on works of devotional art from the Cloisters Museum. The Cloisters is the branch of New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art, which is dedicated to medieval and Gothic European art and architecture. Since 1938, the Cloisters has been located in Fort Tryon Park at the northern end of Manhattan. Set atop a hill, as befitting a medieval monastery, the Cloisters offer spectacular views of the surrounding landscape and the Hudson River. Being located in New York City, and yet seeming to be a world away from the urban metropolis, the Cloisters are unforgettable at any time of the year. However, Christmas is my favorite season to go there. The Cloisters was designed in part out of a recognition that the art and architecture of medieval Europe were intended to be experienced as a whole. The building, its garden, its stained glass windows, its tapestries, its sculptures, and its visual objects are all a part of a unified experience. Reflecting the centrality of Christianity in medieval society, most of the art at the Cloisters is sacred in character. Each of the works of art explored in this video series were designed to be part of the daily devotional lives of particular people. These objects were not solely meant for aesthetic contemplation. They were created to be employed as visual aids to faith. This Art for Advent series attempts to recapture some of the sacred purpose of Gothic devotional art by highlighting how these works make connections between sight and spirituality. This Art for Advent series begins with a devotional prayer book created for the Queen of France by an artist named Jean Poussel. On the second Sunday of Advent, we will examine a book of Hours created by the Limburg brothers, a team of 3 brothers from the Netherlands who are among the most accomplished artists of their time. On the third Sunday of Advent, we will look at a very unusual object. This is an ornate rosary bead, intricately carved out of boxwood. On the last Sunday of Advent, we will look at an altarpiece by Robert Campin, one of the most impressive works of Northern Renaissance art. The Merode Altarpiece professes a relationship between optical sight and spiritual vision. This year's Art for Advent series concludes with a Christmas Day video that looks at the Cloister Collection's famous Unicorn Tapestries. These elegant depictions of the pursuit and capture of the mythological creature visualize courtly love and spiritual grace. These works of art were created between the 14th century and the beginning of the 16th century in regions of Europe that are today in France and Belgium. They represent a period of historical transition from the late Gothic to the early Renaissance. What remains consistent in all of these works is the premise that seeing can enrich believing and that faith is rewarded in sight. These works, in the subjects that they depict and the visual language that they employ, deliberately establish connections between the eternal sacred and the temporal material world. These connections are still accessible to the modern viewer who is willing to look carefully and think theologically. Inspired by the contemplative atmosphere of the Cloisters, these videos focus on the sacred content of the works of art. These devotional objects purposefully cultivate the viewer's spiritual imagination, and for the Christian, a deeper connection to Christ. In this video series, join me in celebrating the Advent season with a visit to the Cloisters.